Project Mkultra, sometimes referred to as the CIA's mind control program, was the code name given to an illegal program of experiments on human subjects, designed and undertaken by the United States Central Intelligence Agency (CIA). Experiments on humans were intended to identify and develop drugs and procedures to be used in interrogations and torture, in order to weaken the individual to force confessions through mind control. Organized through the Scientific Intelligence Division of the CIA, the project coordinated with a Special Operations Division of the U.S. Army's Chemical Corps. The program began in the early 1950s, was officially sanctioned in 1953, was reduced in scope in 1964, further curtailed in 1967 and officially halted in 1973. The program engaged in many illegal activities. In particular, it used unwitting U.S. and Canadian citizens as its test subjects, which led to controversy regarding its legitimacy. Mkultra used numerous methodologies to manipulate people's mental states and alter brain functions, including the surreptitious administration of drugs, especially LSD and other chemicals, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, isolation, verbal and sexual abuse, as well as various forms of torture. The scope of Project Mkultra was broad, with research undertaken at 80 institutions, including 44 colleges and universities, as well as hospitals, prisons, and pharmaceutical companies. The CIA operated through these institutions using front organizations, although sometimes top officials at these institutions were aware of the CIA's involvement. As the U.S. Supreme Court later noted, Mkultra was concerned with the research and development of chemical, biological, and radiological materials capable of employment in clandestine operations to control human behavior. The program consisted of some 149 sub-projects which the agency contracted out to various universities, research foundations, and similar institutions. At least 80 institutions and 185 private researchers participated. Because the agency funded Mkultra indirectly, many of the participating individuals were unaware that they were dealing with the agency. Project Mkultra was first brought to public attention in 1975 by the Church Committee of the U.S. Congress, and a Gerald Ford Commission to investigate CIA activities within the United States. Investigative efforts were hampered by the fact that CIA Director Richard Helms ordered all Mkultra files destroyed in 1973. The Church Committee and Rockefeller Commission investigations relied on the sworn testimony of direct participants and on the relatively small number of documents that survived Helms' destruction order. In 1977, a Freedom of Information Act request uncovered a cache of 20,000 documents relating to Project Mkultra, which led to Senate hearings later that same year. In July 2001, some surviving information regarding Mkultra was officially declassified. Source: Wikipedia article by Robert Bruce Baird. Why post such a thread in this forum religion when most often people consider it to be governmental mind control? But here's why I post it here: because government is manipulated or in league with religion, as we know from the work of Francis Fukuyama, but also in a tangential way when we see MI6 or other alphabet soup agencies interested in the Aymara codework of Sister Sergeti of the Franciscans. Scientology uses many layers of hypnosis, and any person who thinks it is an originator of any technology is sadly mistaken. You can go to threads on that so-called religion here if you want to see more about their abuses of humanity, and bring questions into this thread if you like. I had an association with a minister of the United Church who also brought magic thaumaturgy into his practice and healing. He had no difficulty agreeing with what I said about the use of hypnosis, which we will see as a central part of Mkultra. Finally, before you take the plunge into this rabbit hole, you should know religion and mind control was once a binding force in building humanity into something far better than any cult now existing. IMHO. We will start with a revoltingly racist site, and you will have to overlook its lack of knowledge about what a Jew is or what difference that makes. But do not assume the Kabbalistic constructs do not alter the mind of people studying it in a larger demographic in the genpop of this cultural phenomena, which is gaining adherents who also know next to nothing about its purposes. http://truthhurtsradio.weebly.com Ming2312.html. The following is the opening post from my thread Ogham and Aymara. It should set the stage for why I am the best person to disclose the use of all alphabets in every language developed in the Celtic, Phoenician or Indo-Aryan cultures. As any reader of my work knows by now, Ogham and an Ogham mentor played a major role in altering my life and commitment to learning about the ancients. I think Ogham was the original alphabet derived from chants, shamanic healing, Louis Bethnian, and the lunar calendrical math shown in the work of archaeologists like Alexander Marshak. In fact, I have shown that it includes binary math like the quippers even before recent research confirmed it. Here is a man who seems to see the same integration of spiritual and scientific knowledge, and the choice of the name for his foundation is equally interesting. Mount Meru is said to be from whence the Hindu people were taught their religion, and I think my first published book, Diverse Druids, gave good evidences to show this, is the Tarim Basin Celts and their work. This excerpt is taken from the worldmysteries.com site, and there is a link there to more of Mr. Tennant's work at that excellent compendium of knowledge being gathered by a physicist astronomer who has been most helpful to me and my work. The Meru project is based on 30 years of research by Stan Tenen into the origin and nature of the Hebrew alphabet, and the mathematical structure underlying the sequence of letters of the Hebrew text of Genesis. From the introductory text, the Meru project has discovered an extraordinary and unexpected geometric metaphor in the letter sequence of the Hebrew text of Genesis that underlies and is held in common by the spiritual traditions of the ancient world. This metaphor models embryonic growth and self-organization. It applies to all whole systems, including those as seemingly diverse as meditational practices and the mathematics fundamental to physics and cosmology. Meru project findings demonstrate that the relationship between physical theory and consciousness, expressed in explicit geometric metaphor, was understood and developed several thousand years ago. Ogham includes binary math taken into other alphabets that maintain and develop archetypes and constructs of energy. In Louis Bethanian, it is a medicinal usage that is highlighted. There are many tracts and roots for Ogham, and I am not the only researcher who sees it is similar to the I Ching, which may be derived from it through the Tarim Basin redheads, who we can now say are the people Lao Tzu went to meet as he neared the end of his life on earth. Chanting and other harmonica clicking noises not unlike the whales are possibly the beginning of all language, and DSP would have been more developed in pre-language times, as well as what Plato noted about a writing alphabet leading to a loss of disciplined wisdom. The language development schools of the Phoenician Celts all came from Ogham, and it is widely acknowledged that Hebrew and other Mediterranean languages all came via the Phoenicians. The Aymara language of Peru is developed by the Chachapoyas, leaders of the Incas and earlier cultures there. These white Celtic people who were running Peruvian cocaine to Egypt before the time of Moses are the real nature of corporate cultural history, which I cover in my book on that region. For that reason, I need to provide some of the work related to what most people cannot fathom could be true. I will leave it to the reader to verify Balabanova and her forensic court admissible proof of the cocaine mummies that Professor Martin Bernal of Rutgers also thinks is excellent evidence. You can also look to the bas-relief in Lima that shows Celts there in the pre-ceramic era. Let's look at the work of Sister Sergeti of the Vatican for the matter of binary code of chaos science in these original sacerdotal codes or alphabets. The Aymara code. Sister Serena Sergeti of the Franciscan order is a great linguist, and she used the Peruvian Aymara language in very interesting ways which support the theory that binary math was part of the quippers said to be able to keep poetry and Ogham as a root for all languages, which we have and will continue to touch upon. Another recent report from Steve Connor of The Independent says these things that confirm the following quotation. A leading scholar of South American antiquity believes the Inca did have a form of nonverbal communication written in an encoded language similar to the binary code of today's computers. Gary Urton, professor of anthropology at Harvard University, has reanalyzed the complicated knotted strings of the Inca decorative objects called quipu, and found they contain a 7-bit binary code capable of conveying more than 1,500 separate units of information. This next quote is taken from a whistleblower site on the web. The article dealt with Antarctica and some fishy things going on there at Lake Vostok, so please forgive the choppiness of my excerpting. But members of the archaeological community in the Near East point out that Sergeti is also one of the Vatican's top linguists. Sergeti first made waves as a linguist in the late 1990s when she presented a universal translator software application at a United Nations Earth Summit. Building on the work of Bolivian mathematician Ivan Guzmán de Rojas, Sergeti used the ancient Aymara language of the Andes to translate English into more than 26 languages. The rigid, logical structure of Aymara itself is ideal for transformation into computer algorithm, she said at the time. Its syntactical rules can be spelled out in the kind of algebraic shorthand that computers understand. Since then, the U.S. National Security Agency has been trying to get its hands on Sergeti's system, according to one codebreaker from Britain's MI6 intelligence branch who tried and failed to recruit Sergeti. The Aymara language is so pure that the NSA suspects it didn't just evolve like other languages but was constructed from scratch, the MI6 source said. A sacerdotal language like Hebrew, used by the university chaos science types. In fact, the earliest Aymara myth says that after the Great Flood, strangers attempted to build a city on Lake Titicaca, Tiahuanaco, with its great temple of the sun, but suddenly abandoned it and disappeared. According to legend, they came from the lost island paradise of Aztlan, the Aztec version of Atlantis. In other words, said one Mesoamerican linguist, speaking on condition of anonymity, Sister Sergeti may well know the language of the Atlanteans. As you know, there never was a lost continent or an Atlantis found in only one region of the world. It was a worldwide pan-tribal culture associated with the Keltoi, or Ancient Ones as the Greeks called the DNN. The Ainu are most probably involved, or the DNN, and they definitely are the core people in Peru from at least 15,000 years ago. Finally, you must read what follows in another thread before even starting to think you are getting the picture, more so if you already have some precious beliefs about Mkultra or any religion. http://forum.worldmysteries.com. I at post 3675 PS. Manipulation of human brain is not a fairy tale. Deep transcranial magnetic stimulation (deep TMS) is a non-invasive technique that can induce increases or decreases in excitability of large populations of neurons in deep areas of the brain. Deep TMS is used for the treatment of drug-resistant major depressive disorder, without the need for hospitalization or anesthesia. Deep TMS technology is a type of transcranial magnetic stimulation developed by Abraham Zangin and Yiftach Roth starting in 2001, and a patent was filed by the American National Institutes of Health. In January 2013, the United States Food and Drug Administration permitted the Brainsway, the manufacturer, to market a deep TMS device that was indicated for the treatment of depressive episodes in adult patients suffering from major depressive disorder who failed to achieve satisfactory improvement from previous antidepressant medication treatment in the current episode. Deep TMS was tested for a variety of disorders, including bipolar disorder, addiction, post-traumatic stress disorder, Parkinson's disease, and schizophrenia, with a typical protocol consisting of 15 to 20 sessions, each lasting 15 to 20 minutes, over a course of 3 to 4 weeks. On October 6, 2015, CNN produced an article apparently buried somewhere in the business section. A company named Brainsway is one of the developers of advanced non-invasive treatments for brain disorders. They have announced its partnership with the United States Navy to implement deep transcranial magnetic stimulation (deep TMS). The devices purchased by the Navy will be used to help treat sailors suffering from clinical depression, with the first system to be deployed in San Diego, California. The Navy's purchase of our deep TMS devices is indicative of its ongoing efforts to bring the most advanced medical treatments to the men and women who serve our country, said Dr. Guy Ezekiel, Chief Executive Officer of Brainsway. It is our honor to partner with the Navy in its commitment to ensuring the mental health and safety of U.S. sailors.